Hey, Decathlon Gamer, welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 24. We're into the off season. I'm going to try to just quickly get through some things as we prepare for the new season. If I can manage to do so quickly enough, we'll still get our first race weekend into this episode, which means I'm going to have to try to move quick, keep things brief. Let's start with design for this year. Manufacturing for this year is locked. As of now, I believe research at least should still be open. We do have 3 projects that are in research. And yes, it is still available. Research is available. We just don't have any slots available right now. Very brief recap of where we were for the finances, because very soon we're going to see if all that investment into the facilities pays off in better funding for next season. Our main fund brought in 81 million, sponsor obligations another 18, which brought our grand total to just a hair over $100 million for the year. 17.5 of that up front at the beginning of the preseason at 3.7 per race. In terms of millions, that was good enough for 8 out of the 10 teams. We'll see if we can improve that in the coming season. Merchandising, 5.5 million. Race simulator events brought in 2,350,000 for race hospitality, 87,000 memorabilia, room events, and the driver appearances, grand totaling just over 10 million. Negotiations coming up soon. We have 7.8 million left in the bank right now, by the way. Also, our grand total when it came to the cost cap, we spent 65 million related in cost cap expenses. We have 76 million remaining, which means we spent actually less than half of the projected cost cap. We're going to spend a lot more next year, a lot more, and we'll see how much closer we push, but we had so much cushion. All staff members have contracts beyond this year. Porsche, of course, has a multi-year contract, and Albin, we just re-signed that multi-year contract, though, of course, we hate the bonus. Despise that bonus. Albin is probably only got about 1 year left in the team, most likely. Aitken, 1 week left, and we will be replacing him here as soon as possible. Suspension research complete, and our next side pod research project we will get done just in time. It has to be done before New Year's. I don't need all of my engineers to make that happen. This one's a more minor project, so we're going to get this one going, and then we have another day or two till the next project's done. We'll try to commit what we can to that one to make sure it's going to get done and commit a little more to it. Rear wing research done the very next day, giving us enough time to get another project in. So I can just squeeze in a second rear wing research project ending on New Year's Eve just in time. So we'll get this one in. Cost of $714,000, but absolutely well worth what it's going to do for the car. And here is our performance review for the year with those 3 more research projects ongoing that will complete just in time. Front wing, another rear wing, and side pods, all helping the car for next year. We'll see how much, though, it helps buy. They're all relatively small projects, really, until we get the facilities a little bit further along, which will definitely be that focus in the coming year, hopefully with better finances. But here is that end of season board review. Target position was 9th, which is exactly where we did. We did what we needed to do for the year. We'll see how next year progresses for us. Our long-term objective, we got 3 out of 11 of what they were seeking in terms of points finishes this year. We need to get 11 points finishes, but we've got 2 more seasons to make that happen. And it looks like our team rating is going to stay the same. We're going to pick up a bonus of 1.5 million for the high board confidence and team rating staying the same. Every year, your pit crew progresses throughout the year, but then you have turnover. You have new regs, you have this, that. So every year, right at the end of the year, you get a big step back. So you've gained 3 steps over the course of the season, and you're going to lose 3 steps at the end of the season. And it kind of depends on how you train throughout the year on where your strength will be season by season. But this is where we're at now. So front and rear jacks, -10. We have a -9 on tire changes. We have a -9 on wing adjustment and a -8 on car release. For me, this is probably bad timing as negotiations are going to happen on the 1st of January, just over a month from now. And we're seeing our team attractiveness drop by 4 points, with the boardroom dropping to 80% effectiveness. The race confidence gain is not a problem. We will get this refurbished here, but that's unfortunate. That could cost us some money if this doesn't get repaired by January 1st. 24 days though, that'll happen before the end of the year, so actually we'll be okay. And a confirmation of the rule changes for the year, as we had multiple votes on it throughout the year. Double points for last race, but everything else in the sporting codes have stayed the same. And we have the minor technical changes that take away airflow and engine cooling, or brake cooling primarily. So you can see the engine and brake cooling are the things that were most largely impacted. The rest of the car, not much. I do like the system though, that it's kind of a percentage drop from what the numbers were, but these were minor technical changes. Major ones could have a reset, for all I know. I mean, it could reset everyone to a base level, and that would be interesting for us, obviously, as well, we've got a lot more ground to cover than other teams do. Almost to the new year, but we have another instance of condition of something going down a bit. It's the weather center this time. $600,000 to refurbish, or pay slightly more and just hit the next level. We might as well just hit the next level. Looks like there will be some changes in some of the teams in terms of their drivers. Alonso, out of contract. Gasly, Vettel, all out of contract. Guan Yu Zhou, Lance Stroll, and Yuki Tsunoda, all out of contract. Mick Schumacher, out of contract. So that is quite a few drivers have been released from their contract. So, okay, that does change things. But of course, we already know what direction we want to go, right? We're not looking to spend a ton of money on a reserve driver. We've already made our two-car decision. What we want is a young up-and-comer to take the reserve seat. We don't want to spend a bunch of money on, say, signing Pierre Gasly, who's not going to be improving much, especially if he's not in one of the cars. You'd want him over Pourchaire. But Pourchaire is already in one of the cars. So to develop Pourchaire, he's got to stay in the car. We can't just sign him to a new deal as the reserve driver and then sign Gasly for next year. It's not the plan. It's not going to probably work very well. And that it's New Year's Day. Apparently I have to sign them now, entering the year. I cannot wait any longer. I was going to wait a while, but deadline's on. So candidate number 1, Guan Yu Zhou, 80 overall, but average growth potential. We want somebody who not only has pace, which he has, but we want somebody with higher growth potential for this project. Candidate number 2, Yuki Tsunoda, same problem. Doesn't even have as much pace. And again, average growth potential, so moving on. Mick Schumacher, same issue. And that brings us to 19-year-old Jack Doohan. He's a free agent, so now we don't even have to bother with any sort of buyout to get him in, and we don't have to spend money to get Aitken out. And at 19, he has high growth potential. How high, we don't know until we get him into the team, but he's already got good pace. He doesn't have the issue, actually, that Pourchaire has. He just needs to work mostly on his smoothness. He's going to be terrible on tires, and some of his racecraft adaptability in particular. He's not going to be good on a wet race weekend. So getting him into practice sessions is going to be of the utmost importance. It's going to take a little development away from Albon, but Doohan's going to be a lot cheaper to have in there, and is going to have much better overall potential, you would think, considering his pace is already similar to Albon's. He just needs to work on, a few other areas. You can see the two big faults, the adaptability and the smoothness, but the control, it's similar. Braking, not bad. Cornering is identical, and he's got an advantage in the accuracy. The reactions are better. The defending 1 point better. So we see what he needs work on, but you can also see how it wouldn't take him long, and especially with the growth potential. I don't think it would take him long to overtake Albin. We just have those few kind of key areas to work on for a while, and yeah, I could see Doohan being in the car in maybe a year. We'll see how that high aggression works, whether we like it or not, especially once he starts comparing side by side with Pourchaire. Pourchaire in car 1 will catch up and pass Doohan, I would think, over the course of this season. But Doohan, if we give him a lot of FP1s, should progress pretty rapidly as well and not be too far behind. So we've done a few negotiations. We're going to run out of time on this one fairly soon. The only thing we're not in agreement in is the money. I have no idea really what to offer him. It started at 100K. We've bumped that up to 200 already. I'm going to go quite a bit higher here to try to get this before we run out of patience and then are left with somebody besides the guy we want to have in here. Adding in a starting bonus to try to, help push this over the line. We're going to push that even higher. I went straight to 300,000 on that one and still didn't get him, and patience is low. He's still open to negotiation, but this is probably our last chance. So I'm going to bump this up quite a bit. We're going to go up to 500,000 and hope that will bring him in. It's only 41,000 a month. That should do it, and it does. It does. Okay, we got him, and we're into the new season. Negotiations are coming first. Good news, but far more bad news as we're going through the negotiations. All that team attractiveness has done nothing with the sponsors. What would do something with our sponsors is as we move up the grid, as we have our team rating year by year increase, our main fund is going to go up. For now, we're stuck with the exact same that we had from a year ago because our rating was unchanged. The only difference in the sponsorship as well is we're going to lose experience gains a few more days, but I've made one big change that's giving us ultimately the exact same money that we had a year ago, which we'll be spending it somewhere other than where we spent it this last year, but otherwise it's the same money, unfortunately. But the big difference is the driver appearances. I have turned it both up and down. I've turned up the number of appearances to every single race weekend from where it was, which was 15 or 16, but I've turned it down from both drivers to just Albin. So Pourchaire is not going to have to make any appearances, which means he is going to gain driver experience at a greater volume over the course of the year, making him even better, helping him catch up on Albin. Meanwhile, 15 to 22 means 7 more events, but one driver instead of 2 means 15 fewer. So overall, the net is a little bit less money. Maybe in future years we'll turn that up because that's worth an additional $6 million over the course of the season. But our income per race is going to be at $4 million, but our preseason lump sum is going to be a little bit less this year. But I like that income per race going up. And our new season objective, 9th or above. So we're right in the same place we were. Of course, the long-term objective, a points contender, remains. We have 2 years to make that happen. So next year, we're going to be trying to do that. So we have one more year to really focus on getting those facilities up, especially the ones that have to do with developing the car. And this year, we're going to focus pretty heavily on developing the car. We have the right drivers in place. We've already made one change to the staff. I'm thinking about making one more this year, but otherwise, we're going to keep the same staff in place, keep the same drivers in place, and of course, Albin on the way out, possibly for Jack Doohan, maybe by the end of this season or within 2. We'll see how things are going in terms of how quick is Doohan developing and how truly expensive is Albin with this new contract of his. Cost cap size for the year coming, 141 million, so right back to everything we have there, and it looks like we're starting with about 19 million. At least at the moment. We'll see if that's the case. We had a leftover balance. We had 9 million left, but I'm not seeing where that is. We'll see if that actually gets added in or not. But the sponsorship money, some board payments are going to bring us up by another 18 million. Here's our research progress versus the regulation changes. You can see in the chassis, we're going to drop by 5%. We didn't quite cover it, but our drag reduction will be improved. Airflow unchanged, and airflow middle will be slightly more than what it was previously. On the front wing, we have negated the brake cooling issue, and we're seeing gains in downforce. We've also far exceeded the airflow requirements. In the rear wing, plenty of gains through research with only minimal loss through regulation changes. We're looking much stronger there as well. Side pods. We only did the one research project here, and it didn't quite cover the loss. So our engine cooling is dropping a little bit here. Drag reduction is improved by a few percent, and we almost covered the airflow, but not quite. Underfloor, we did progress to the car with upgrades throughout the year, but we did not do research on the underfloor. So that is one area we're going to want to probably make that our first upgrade for the coming year. But airflow sensitivity down 5% is the only negative on that one, at least. And then the suspension, we almost covered the brake cooling. Drag reduction is definitely improved. Downforce is improved a bit, and we did a slightly more positive than negative on the airflow front. Season price share is unchanged. We should be bringing in $49 million here for that one. One of those nice things about finishing, towards the back end of the field is you do get additional testing limitations. We're going to get 88 hours in the wind tunnel, where Ferrari's only going to get 56 in the coming year. It does help. Now, I was saving this one until we get here. We had a Mercedes engine this last year, and it's the strangest thing to me that Mercedes was in that right place for so long at the top of the grid, and then a couple regulation changes at just the right time. Honda going all in, especially just throwing AlphaTauri under the bus when they were first switched to Honda, and DNF, engine penalty over and over again over about a season and a half to really get the most out. And then just as they get that engine figured out, they got the FIA to lock in and make it impossible to change the engine. Convenient. But anyway, it does have the most power. I don't think we're going to be sticking with Mercedes for a couple of reasons. One, it's the most expensive package, and it has the least amount of power. And power was a serious issue for us. But everything has some give and take to it. The wear resistance isn't even the highest. Renault is higher, actually. And the power loss threshold, I'm thinking that we're going to have to make some changes. Thermal resistance is where Mercedes is the best. It doesn't overheat like the others do. But fuel efficiency, the Ferrari, Renault, much better, meaning you would be able to push those engines a lot harder. The Renault has the thermal resistance to go with it, but it doesn't have a big increase on power. It's 1%. Gearbox durability, another big concern. It's terrible on the Mercedes, and that was a real issue for us this last season. ERS durability, Ferrari is top. I'm thinking that we're probably going to want to go with the Ferrari. Increase on power. Power loss threshold up 10%, where resistance is about the same. Thermal resistance is going to be a bit of an issue, and that you've seen that with the Ferrari. But the fuel efficiency, much better. Gearbox durability, much better. ERS durability, better. In fact, best. We're going to spend. Your other options, the Red Bull powertrain that has the most power, has good thermal resistance, but is terrible on fuel. Gearbox durability is pretty good, but the ERS is a real issue. At least with Ferrari, it's balanced. So there it is. That's the big move. We are switching to Ferrari engines for the coming season. Here's the update on the drivers for the coming season. Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Perez, still those top two teams. Hamilton, Russell, Bottas, and Alonso switching to Alfa Romeo, which, by the way, that was the team that finished fourth in the Constructors, and at the end of the season looked to be third best, at times second best. Alpine, Gasly, and Ocon, the match made in heaven or hell. The two hate each other, have ever since they were kids, and they are favorites to be at Alpine in the coming season, as Gasly very well could be moving over there. Interesting combination. AlphaTauri, Vettel not retiring, switching over to AlphaTauri, taking Gasly's spot, and Guan Yu Zhou in the second. McLaren has Ricciardo and Norris, with Piastri as the reserve driver. In Haas, it's Tsunoda and Magnussen. Of course, Porsche, Albon with Jack Doohan for us. And the Aston Martin, it's Stroll with Mick Schumacher for the coming season. That's going to hurt Aston Martin just a little bit, I would think. Nico Hülkenberg is the reserve driver. And our first preview on the car with new engines, all that research we did. Here's how it's looking. Here is last year's car. This is the coming year's car. We're gaining almost a full kilometer an hour in top speed. So that's something. Acceleration up quite a bit as well. A fair bit anyway. 1/100th. Cornering. Significantly better in low speed cornering. More than a tenth of a G. I mean, that is a almost 5% increase. Medium speed cornering also right at a tenth up. Of course, overall that's less of an impact because it's 1/30th. It's 3%, but that's something. And high speed, more than a G, more than a tenth as well. So solid gains in cornering. DRS. Not quite a kilometer an hour, but 7/10. A little bit of acceleration under DRS as well. Dirty air cornering. Up 8% in low speed. 8% in medium speed. 8% in high speed. All pretty solid gains there. Brake cooling has improved by 3%. Engine cooling did fall off with that regulation change. 30% was that drop, yet we've only actually ended up dropping by just 2%. So I think we covered it off pretty well. We are seeing the car already going in a good direction. Where is that compared to the rest of the teams? We won't know just yet. Paying for the engine was something that we have just barely pulled off at this stage, as projections for the year are showing that we should have about 114 million at the end of the season, which of course we're going to be reinvesting, a good 100 of that, mostly in facilities and upgrades to the car. I think that's going to leave us with about 80 million towards facility upgrades, and then the rest of that towards the car. But it's tight at the moment, 3.5 million, but we can get started on projects here right away, hopefully. Yeah, the board payments, the prize money spread out throughout the year, so we don't get it all in one lump sum, and that is one of the main reasons why we are where we are in finances. But also the 8 million that we had at the end of the season, the board has reclaimed that and then given us our yearly. So they took that 8 million away from us. So it's a good thing we didn't have a ton of money in reserve, because it looks like if we had that 25 million left over that we had at one point during the season, it would have just vanished, and we would have been starting with a $3.5 million balance either way. Monthly balance is still a positive one, 3.5 million. So and then race weekends we'll be bringing some money in, but it's going to trickle in throughout the season and not just up front, or not a big chunk of it up front. We are a little strapped for cash at the moment. The good news, and where some of that money went, was into manufacturing new parts with the new designs, which, even though some of the designs just finished up in the last day or two, technically they're all ready now. So we have car parts for the car, car parts for the first race weekend. We have nearly 3 months, plenty of time to start doing some research. But how much can we afford as we go forward is going to be that tricky part. But let's get some projects underway. Here's our January 1st comparison on the car compared to everybody else. And I'm happy. I am happy. We have made progress compared to everybody else. Top speed. This is car 1, so car 2 is equal. So car 2 is just behind us. But we're ahead of one team in top speed, so there's already a gain. Acceleration is still bottom though, but we gained a fair bit. So I mean, at least we've caught up. Low speed cornering is still bottom of the grid, but medium speed is no longer last place. High speed, it's midfield. High speed cornering is now midfield. All those gains that we had made did not get us there. They had gotten us almost. Now they have. Now they have gone up to midfield. DRS, we're ahead of one team. Acceleration, with DRS, it's getting there. We're no longer at the back end of the grid. We're still off the pace, but I think just looking at this, 9th place is going to be a much easier thing to do, and I think we will compete much more regularly with the midfield. Not necessarily beating them very often, and it's still going to be track specific, but especially if we get some more research done before the first race, I could see us going, up, not back. You can see what's happening. Dirty air cornering also. Low speed is still last, but medium speed is actually even better than our regular cornering, and the high speed, ninth, midfield, but above halfway. Brake cooling is up above a team now, and engine cooling is still last. But we were 19th in almost every single category. We were 17th in high-speed cornering at the end of the season, and high-speed dirty air cornering. And we had passed one. We had passed Stroll's car in a couple areas, but not Vettel. Vettel had some better parts on. Those better parts, that research is going to be on both cars at the start of the year. But our research has paid off. But we've got a long ways to go yet. I mean, this is still a back marker, but it's a competitive back marker. I think much more so than what we were. Remember, the first half of the season, all we were beating was Aston Martin. The second half of the season, we were competitive on the right tracks, or in the right situations. Like Abu Dhabi, we weren't really very competitive. We weren't really beating cars, but it was those two stoppers who went backwards, and we just happened to stay ahead of a little over half of those that had pit. We were struggling with Vettel even, and that was a lot of lower speed, medium speed corners. I'm happy. Our research has paid off. Let's get some more going. Starting with an underfloor upgrade, look at the scenario we have. Our underfloor is now 7th best in high speed and committing a fair bit, but not half, a fair bit, but about 40% or so of the values that we have for the first 2 months. We're going to be careful on doing too much too early, because we're going to have multiple upgrades, quite a few upgrades before the season starts. Look where that would put us. Our underfloor would have the best high-speed downforce, and that's just going neutral. Told you the underfloor is important. It's middle of February, and Jack Doohan has already picked up 2 development points I want to get everything to that 80. That's kind of my happy zone. So we'll improve his braking by 2 points, and then his next two will go to braking as well, and then we will start focusing on his smoothness, and especially that adaptability is quite low. I like the accuracy. He's going to hold a good line. In fact, this is already an average of 80 now, so we might start, now that it's there, on the smoothness for future. I've been doing a lot of research here leading up to the first Grand Prix, which is now less than 3 weeks away, and we didn't get to do anything with the Barcelona preseason testing, but here is those results, just confirming where we're at on the grid. Medium speed, we've absolutely moved up the grid quite a bit. High speed into the top 10, and you can see, the cornering medium speed is 13th. That's so important for us. DRS also 17th, 15th. Overall top speed, it's not last anymore. So I can tell right away we are definitely going to be faster. A Monaco with a lot of low speed corners, still going to be an issue this season, but right tracks. For the right tracks, we can be pretty competitive. I think we could easily get into the points on the right track. Underfloor research complete. Starting work almost immediately on the next design. I learned the hard way you cannot finish a research project and immediately go into the next one, or at least so it would seem. What you need to do is you need to finish research and then manufacture. All you need is one. But you gotta put the real thing together, because then you base that design to do the next one. Not just we completed the research, we have the theoretical. You need to have the practical. You need to have the real thing. So manufacture one, then start the next research project. And that's what we're doing here with the underfloor. And look where our underfloor is going to be following this one. This is going to be the 5th iteration of an underfloor from where we started. And this is bringing us almost right to the top of the grid in the underfloor. And it is having a bigger impact than all of those other part upgrades. We're moving up the order pretty quick, it looks like. Drag reduction is going to go first, at least in terms of underfloor. Low speed, focusing in on that one now, is going to come all the way up from 11th to 3rd. Medium speed from 5th to 1st, and high speed from 3rd to 1st. Airflow sensitivity also from 7th up to 3rd. So our worst position on the grid will be 3rd when it comes to the underfloor in comparison to others. Now, the overall car impact, cornering is going to go from low speed 17th up to 11th, medium from 11th to 9th, and high speed from 7th to 5th. Not quite there yet, but you can see the underfloor is going to be a very key piece to where we're going, and where so many of our parts are still right at the back of the grid. A good underfloor alone is bringing us up from the back end, from the cellar to the back markers, up into a comfortable midfield. That should make us comfortable midfield, cornering like that. So the Jack Doohan 2 development points was one of those random chance things, and Dirk de Beer, the new head of aerodynamics that we hired late last season, has just had the same little mini event, and he picks up 2 development points, and you can see just how strong he's already. I mean, everything's 80 plus. I put a point recently in a medium speed downforce for him. We're going to add one more there now, and also one to low speed, as we really want to bring those along. The downforce in particular, high, medium, and low. And since we are better at high than the others, we want to, help. So preseason, I focused on chassis, front wing, and underfloor. Those upgrades, at least on car 1, the underfloor is not quite ready across the board yet as we're entering this first race weekend. But those upgrades, post-Bahrain testing results, we are now looking the top speed no longer at the back. Everything's 9th now. Top speed and acceleration. So we've firmly passed, presumably, Aston Martin. The acceleration piece on DRS is moving even higher up, as we have a pretty good grip on what's going on with DRS. Engine cooling still an issue way down at last, but brake cooling's at 17th, and the cornering. The cornering is coming along. Low speed is now 17th. We're no longer last. Medium speed is up to 11th, and high speed is up to 7th. It's not showing red anymore. Dirty air cornering is even better. 13th, 11th, and then also 7th. But, wow. I mean, I knew we'd be making progress this season. I did not think it would be this fast. I was hoping we would get straight into that next race weekend, but you know what? This is definitely taken plenty of time. We easily have a full episode here. So our next episode will be Bahrain and the season opener. But here is where the car, as of right now, with those 3 new parts and more upgrades on the way, by the way. We have research active going. The car's going to get even better. But here is where it is compared to grid average. So we're going with grid average, middle of the road, 10 teams. Top speed, not far off from grid average. Acceleration, still have a ways to go, but we've come quite a long ways, and it's not far from grid average now. Low speed cornering, still a ways below grid average. Still a ways to go, but it is definitely getting better. Medium speed is approaching grid average. High speed is now better than grid average. We're on the upper half. DRS, still not quite. Still a ways to go there as well. Acceleration is nearly grid average with DRS. That is some serious progress that we have made there as well. Dirty air cornering, low speed was down around 12%. We've brought it all the way up to 32. Grid average is 35. We've almost made it there. Medium speed was, I think, down around 22, 24 when we started. It's up to 43. It's almost grid average. And high speed is better than grid average now. Brake cooling, still a long ways to go till we get to grid average. And engine cooling still has quite a ways to go to reach grid average. But we are almost to grid average almost everywhere. Our top speed was 372 at one point last season. It's almost grid average. I mean, folks, we're going to be scoring points much more often. Much more often. But it's still going to be track specific. It's definitely still going to be track specific. We're looking at a track that medium speed is the way to go. And we're not that far from grid average there. But low speed is also important. Acceleration also important. I don't think we're necessarily going to be in the points for Bahrain, but you better believe we're not going to be like last season where we were struggling just to race with the Aston Martins to not be last, which we won that battle, but we were well off of everybody else. It's not going to be a problem this season. I just don't think we're quite going to be in the points, at least on that track yet. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.